Hey, so you're too masculine and that's why your man left you. So sit back, let's figure out how we're gonna fix this. So that didn't feel that good, did it? I'm sure it didn't. And that's exactly what it feels like to a masculine man when you are in your masculine, giving him information, telling him what we're gonna do, telling him how we're gonna fix something. It comes off very abrasive, very harsh, and not very feminine. So I want to just start over. I want you to take that feeling in because that's the feeling that we're channeling today. We're thinking about ways that we behave in our relationships in a very masculine tone, masculine demeanor, masculine output, and how we're going to bring that back in and reform ourselves to be more feminine in our relationships. So let's start over. Good morning, gorgeous. How are you doing this morning? I hope you're doing wonderful. Welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Daff, and we're talking today about the reasons why men leave relationships. I have received so many messages over the last 3 or 4 years that I've been putting out this type of content, and lots of questions about why people's husbands and boyfriends and fiancés have left them. And when describing the situations to me, it was very clear that they were behaving in masculine ways that were challenging and detrimental to their relationships. So I know that this is a really painful topic when we're talking about someone leaving you. It brings about so many different feelings of rejection and abandonment and feeling like we are not enough because someone decided to walk away from us, but you are enough. Recently, one of my friends went to go get her hair done and she told me it was gonna take 3 hours. However, the appointment ended up taking 8 hours instead, because of the fact that the stylist took about 4 hours just to detangle her hair. Her hair was so matted, so nappy, so untamed and unruly because she hadn't taken any care of it, and that took up the majority of the appointment. In the same way, you, my love, living in America especially, have been taught how to behave in relationships in a way that can be very detrimental to your relationship. We have had to live in our masculine energy so much, especially if you're a Black woman, that it is going to take lots of detangling in order to get that beautiful hairstyle that you desire. That process has to come first. So this is a detangling process for you. As painful as it is that this man left you, it also opens up this whole world for you of self-improvement and of regaining the woman that God called you to be, a beautiful, lovely, feminine woman. So that's what we're going to talk about today, just a few things that you can do in your relationship to help ease some of these masculine qualities that have pushed men away from you. So I know it's sensitive, I know it's painful, so I'm gonna be as gentle as possible with this topic as I always am, but I really do want you to take it in and allow yourself to absorb this information and practice these things with other people in your life, even if it's not a man, so that it can become second nature to you and then hopefully first nature to you, where it's your automatic response to everyone in your life. And you will find it will transform your relationships. So go ahead and get something warm and cozy to drink, sit back, relax, and let's talk about this. Something that's really important to remember, my love, is that when you are in your relationships and you are seeking marriage, you are being selected. I know it doesn't feel good to think of it in that way because you don't want to feel like you're on The Bachelor or you're performing for a man. But the reality is men are the ones who decide who is going to be their wife. They make the selection. They get to choose in that sort of way. Obviously, you have a choice about who you date, but they decide if they're going to marry you or not. So when you are in that dating process, it's so important for you to understand yourself, understand men, understand what they want. So many of you are dating and you're in relationships, and some of you are engaged and you have never learned about what it actually means to have a strong marriage, what it actually means for a man to be satisfied and fulfilled, what it means to be a feminine woman, how to make sure that your marriage doesn't crumble in 2 years. You've never paid any attention to these things. You're only focused on the romance and the trips and looking cute and sex, when those are not the things that are going to uphold your relationship. Men who are masculine men desire feminine women, women who are soft, women who are sweet, women who are respectable. This is important to a masculine man. If you have had a masculine man walk away from you, it doesn't mean it's because you are also masculine. However, in the messages that I have received, the majority of them point to that. So that's why I'm talking about this today. I'm not going to overload you because there are so many masculine qualities and traits that you may be exhibiting in your relationship, but I don't want to overwhelm you. I want to just focus on 3 areas that you can start working on, and it will open up the door to some of those other areas. I am also going to save the last tip for my podcast because I have supportive listeners there and I want to make sure that they're getting the bulk of my information, but I am sharing some of it here on YouTube for you ladies as well. We're focusing on 3 different things in terms of you being a more feminine woman in your relationships and staying out of his masculine role, his masculine range. So we're going to talk about being abrasive, controlling, and negative. Those are the 3 traits that we're going to talk about. And it doesn't mean that being controlling, abrasive, and negative are masculine traits. However, when you are behaving in these ways, they do bring out the masculine side. And that ends up becoming a complete turnoff to a man who is operating in his masculine because you're his woman. He wants you to be the soft, pretty, delicate flower that he gets to come home to. Not one of the boys, not someone to compete with, not someone who's going to bring him stress and pain. You are his safe space, his beautiful, delightful space. And I want to remind you that when it comes to dating for marriage or, just dating in general, when it comes to this, the man is thinking of you as a compilation of every single interaction. If you're having more negative interactions than positive interactions, that is going to take over his perception of you and the relationship. And if he's a masculine man who is driven, who is ambitious, who is doing something with his life, he's not going to want a woman who is going to stress him out and impact his productivity. So enough with that. Let's just talk about ways that you may be being a bit too abrasive in your relationship. Men like a woman who knows how to relax. This is an important part of your femininity, is knowing how to just take a step back, not take everything personal, not take everything so seriously, and learn how to lean back into him. When I talk about being too abrasive, this really speaks to the way that you say things. So I'm focusing on these little tidbits of important behaviors because sometimes you don't realize it's the small things that are causing holes to be poked in your relationship. And then all of the air, all of the water just drains out. Being too abrasive looks like the way that you say things. Being very confrontational. It's like every time something comes up, you're met with this fight. Like he sees you and you're already ready to argue. Your facial expression, your tone, your look is ready for a fight. He doesn't feel like this is a space of peace. He feels like if he brings something to the table, like an issue that he has with you, he's going to be met with you being defensive, with you being argumentative, and with you saying things in a cold and harsh way. Things that will hurt his feelings. Things that will hurt his pride, bring up things that he told you in private, things that he never would have thought you would throw back in his face. That abrasive demeanor is such a turnoff, and a masculine man will not tolerate too much of that. Also, being harsh and critical, not just of him, but of other people. So if he tells you something that he did and maybe he messed up or maybe he could have done things a little bit differently, you just always pointing out what he should have done better, what he could have done better. You always have the right answer. And if you work a masculine job, well, I don't want to say masculine job, but if you work a job where you are told that you are the person that has all the answers and you're expected to provide feedback and provide solutions and answer questions and debate, then you are probably normally in that state of mind. So when he does bring up something, you're automatically looking for what went wrong, what should have been different. And that's one of those things that we'll talk about later, about how to take off that masculine energy that you need for your job and not bring it home to your man. And in terms of being critical, it's also being critical with other people. So if he tells you about his cousin who went on a skiing trip and she didn't know how to ski and she was, falling down and complaining about how cold it was, and you're like, why would you go somewhere and we don't know how to do the activity? And, why is she making a big deal? We all know that it's cold when you go skiing. When he's just telling you a story and you are criticizing the person in the story, or you're out with him and the salesperson's taking a little bit too long to help you, and you're like, oh, they're so busy in here, they never have anyone to help, this is why I don't like coming here, and look at her, she's like taking her sweet time helping that one, knowing that we're standing here. He's looking at you like, dang, you're really critical. And that affects how he approaches you, because if he hears you talking like this about all these other people, he's thinking in his mind, when I have something to say to her, when I mess up, when I do something wrong, she's going to criticize me in the same way. It takes away your beauty. When you're also really abrasive and just like really harsh with your words, it's hard for him to trust you around people that he cares about, because maybe you'll snap at his mother when he's not around, or snap at one of his coworkers and embarrass him. Maybe you'll snap out in public with him and embarrass him. That is so scary to a man, to be embarrassed by his woman. It is so scary. No one wants to feel like it's even a possibility. And if it's happened once or happened twice, they do not know if this is going to be a continuous thing. So maybe you're not worth that investment, right? Another way that abrasiveness comes out, and it's a very masculine, like just displeasing behavior to witness, is your language, is your mouth, my love, is that beautiful tongue that you should be using for something else, to be spitting out profanity. And when you're arguing, or not even just arguing, but when you're talking, you're using curse words. And some of you will say, I know I'm struggling with this. This is an area that's really just hard for me. Why is it so hard for you? Why is it so hard for you to stop cursing? Is it a lack of vocabulary? You don't have other words that you can use to express yourself? Is it because you are enraged and you feel like that is the best way to explain your rage in a situation? But think about that. Why is it so hard for you to stop cursing? Because clearly you can decide when you do and don't want to do it. You don't curse around everyone. So this is an area I would definitely bring to God and pray about, to help you, to put a guard over your mouth, to help you in this area of profanity. But in addition to just, cursing in general, when you curse in an argument or in a discussion, even if he doesn't tell you he doesn't like it, I would say most men really detest it. They may not bring it up to you, but it takes away from your beauty, your class, your grace. When this gorgeous, soft, feminine woman starts cursing, it's like, what is that? And this is something that I really want you to work on if you're struggling with this, because it takes away from your beauty, and you don't need to curse. When you stop, you will see how ugly it is, because when you hear it, it'll make you so uncomfortable. When you're being abrasive in a conversation, in any sort of interaction, it just gives you this very stiff demeanor. Like you just look unattractive. You want to be soft. You want to be peaceful. You want to be flowing. You want to be, like this silk dress I'm wearing. You just want to be shining with beauty. But when you are abrasive, when you are quick with your tongue, when you are harsh, when you are tearing him down or other people down with your words, you are not lovable in that moment. It is very difficult for him to see you as a beautiful feminine woman. You're like one of the boys. You're like that boss he can't stand at work. And it's not to say you're not lovable as a person, but in that interaction with him, he is not pulled to be soft with you. He's not wanting to wrap his arms around you and hold you because you're like a porcupine. You're stiff, you're rigid. And no man wants to have that interaction on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. So I really want you to think about this and work on this if this is something that you see yourself doing. In your eyes, when you look at yourself in terms of how you act in your relationship, would you date yourself? Knowing all the things you've done, all the things you've said, all the ways that you've behaved, would you date yourself? Would you marry yourself? And not to say, oh yeah, I'm so great, I'm da 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 da. Well, you are. But if you had to deal with you and the way that you act, would you? That is a serious question to ask yourself. In the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, it says, "It is better to live on a corner of the roof than to share a house with a quarrelsome wife." Proverbs 21:9. And Proverbs 21:19 says, "It is better to live in a desert than with a quarrelsome and nagging wife." That goes to show you how much God also despises and detests when a woman is becoming a problem in the relationship because she is contentious, she's abrasive, and she's argumentative. Think about this, pray about this, and cut it out. Another area that truly does impact a man wanting to leave a relationship, even if you are gorgeous and you're, the most popular person around, your nails are always done, your hair is cute, you smell good, you wear the nicest clothes, he will still leave if you are displaying lots of masculine behaviors. Masculine men will not tolerate it because you're not the only beautiful person. There are beautiful women who are also feminine. So another area that I really want you to hone in on is your ability to release control. As a woman, do you know how to relax and go with the flow? Do you always have to be in charge? Do you need to tell him what he needs to do? Do you need to plan everything out and be unwilling to accept change? Are you able to submit to his direction? This is one of the hallmarks of being a masculine man, is having a woman who knows how to follow your guidance, who's not always arguing whenever you bring something up, who doesn't go and do exactly what you asked her not to do just because she felt it was a better decision to make, who knows how to be grateful for the things that you're doing and not feel like you could have done it better, you could have done it this way. Those things are very hurtful and they take away that man's sense of joy in being in the relationship. He wants to give to you. And one of the things he wants to give to you is happiness, is for you to be able to look at him and be proud of him. But when you're too controlling, it takes that away. You then become the leader. You then become the man. You then become the one that wears the pants. You then become the one that he needs to clap for and all of that. And he doesn't want to do that. He wants a woman who respects him, who listens to him, who trusts him. If there is an issue at hand, you do not need to be the one that comes up with all of the solutions. You can allow him to come up with solutions and then affirm them. If he brings up an idea to you that you might think is like, okay, instead of always having something to say, just listen to him and affirm him and say, you know what? I didn't think about that. That's interesting. It can just be interesting. Even if you think it's stupid, it is interesting. Oh, well, that's interesting. You don't have to always say what you think. You shouldn't. Let him breathe. Let him share. Let him be comfortable with you enough to be able to tell you things that maybe he hasn't fully thought out. And let that be okay. As a feminine woman, part of it is using your feminine creativity to figure out different ways to say what you want to say. So he might bring something up and you might say, oh, I like that idea. And instead of saying but, you can say, oh, I like that idea. What if we did da-da-da-da-da-da? Right? So you are taking him in And then you can bring up your, idea in a very excited way without denouncing his. Or if he brings up something, let's say he says, today I would love us to go to the park and take a walk. And you're like, oh, that is the last thing I want to do today. Okay. Instead of saying that, keep a neutral face as he's talking. Don't start changing your face in the middle of what he's saying. Listen to him and say, I was thinking we could, or you can say, well, I was really hoping that we could go get ice cream today because I'm really craving some chocolate ice cream. Do you think you could do that for us? You're still taking in what he's saying. You're not throwing it out, but you can still say what you want. You don't have to completely let him make every decision and you say nothing and you feel everything he feels because that's what you're supposed to do. You're his shadow. No. Try hinting in some ways. Try saying things in a softer way, in a more delicate way, instead of demanding what you demand right now. And if he says that he cannot do something, instead of trying to control that situation, let it be. If you really want to take a trip down to Santa Barbara and he says, right now, financially, that's not something I can do, but, maybe at another time. Oh, no, it's okay. I'll pay for it. Oh, no, I have a hookup here. It's good. Like, we can go. If he says no, then let it just be no. Don't try to pay for it. Don't try to take over controlling his financial situation. When he says he's not ready to do that right now, don't try to make it work. Just say, okay. Now, if you are in a marriage and your finances are, combined or whatever the case might be, you might be able to say, well, what if we sell this or do that and then maybe we'll have the money to go? That's fine. But if you're dating someone and they are trying to be careful with their money, don't insist by saying you're going to pay for it, because that takes away his masculine joy in providing you that experience and providing you something you want by saying, oh, I'm just going to do it myself. But come along. That's not the feeling that you want to be in your relationship. And this also goes for sex, just being hypersexual, just wanting it all the time and demanding it. And if he doesn't really, want to lead in that area because you're always at him, it is very masculine to behave like that. And you might think, well, men love sex and he never says no or whatever, but you don't realize how it's changing the way he sees you. And that's why maybe you think, I've been having all this sex with him and he's still left. Well, that's part of the reason why. That's not attractive in someone he wants to see long term. Let him lead in all areas of the relationship and you will be so much happier. He will be so much happier. He will know that he is able to guide you in this relationship and guide the family instead of feeling like he is underneath someone else. That is not the way God arranged things. And so it'll never work. Unless, of course, you're not really with a masculine man. But even men who are not traditionally fully in their masculine, they still expect and desire a woman to allow him to lead. So I do have one more topic, the topic of being negative, and that does have a lot of layers. So you can listen on my podcast, The Dr. Dab Show, available on all podcast platforms. I thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I thank you for your openness in this very painful, difficult topic. I hope that this process is the beginning of something beautiful for you and that you continue this conversation with God and allow him to shape and mold and build you up to be the beautiful feminine woman that he created you to be. Until next time, big kisses. Mwah. Bye-bye.